Thank you very much. Dr. Saran, do you have my check? No, I didn't. Next time then. Members of the National Transformation Alliance governance team, previous local government election candidates, members of the media, good morning. Thank you for coming here this morning and welcome to the new NTA headquarters in St. Joseph. Usually persons will know that usually who wins St. Joseph wins the general election. And I give you the promise that when I win this seat, I promise to spend as much time in this office as I do in the other ministries that I would lead when we are in government. It is unfortunate that sometimes ministers, when they get appointed in ministries, they forget who put them there. And that is definitely not going to be my intention. This office will very well become the next member of parliament for St. Joseph, and it was strategically placed. It was put here in a position to make sure that people will have access to it, and that I will spend as much time here, even more than going out in the ministry. Because what happens is you go up as a candidate, you go as a member of parliament, and then you totally forget who put you there. Because you love the perks of being a minister in your ministry where you have the prados and persons saluting you, and you have all the perks, and forget about this. This is what it is about. And that is why we place this office here, strategically placed to ensure that we can serve the citizens of St. Joseph. Also, we would be opening another office in San Fernando West in the next few weeks. And as I said, there's a reason for this. We intend to be right there. When I was taking part in that local government election campaign, I walked the length and breadth of Trinidad, not just with the NTA candidates, but candidates in the UNC, because we were part of an alliance. So apart from the benefit of me losing 25 pounds doing that walking, I do not think there's no political leader in the history of Trinidad and Tobago that spends so much time walking the ground. I walked the ground more in one day than all the other political leaders would have done throughout the whole campaign. And there's a reason for this. Not because I just wanted to lose weight, but because we need to interact. It's the same way I operated as a commissioner of police, as a minister of national security. We have to be prepared to pull up or pull back our sleeves and get on the ground and work with the people. You cannot just be utilizing persons conveniently, shaking their hands, giving out money in bars and hope that they would vote for you, and then you forget about them. The same way I promise you Trinidad and Tobago that I operated as a commissioner of police, being on the ground with my troops, being there with them, I intend to do the same thing as a future member of parliament in St. Joseph, where I intend to work with the constituents, look at their needs, look at their concerns, and in the same way that we were able to transform the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, I intend to transform the constituency of St. Joseph. I intend to make St. Joseph constituency safe again. So there are three matters that I'm here for today. The first is again to welcome you all to the NTA headquarters and to justify and explain the reason for us being here in St. Joseph. The second involves the future of the NTA. And the third, unfortunately, I will have to discuss as it pertains to comments made by the Prime Minister being hidden under the cloak of Parliament. But the second, as I said, has to do with the NTA. Where do we go from here? I know the media and many persons have been asking, they want to know, would the NTA go alone? Would we work with other political parties? Do we intend to take part in a general election? Do we intend to work with the UNC as we did in the local government election that ensured an annihilation of the PNM being defeated by over 60,000 votes? And the answer as it pertains to us working with other political parties, other entities, the answer is yes. The reason that word, if you look at the name, the National Transformation Alliance, there's a reason we have that word alliance. It is an alliance not just of political parties, but an alliance of minds. And when you look at the political history of Trinidad and Tobago, in 1981, 1991, 2002, and 2007, that bridge constituency, be it the ONR in 1981 getting 91,000 votes, the NAR in 1991 getting 127,000 votes, the COP in 2007 getting 147,000 votes, and even Team Unity in 2002. When it is that they worked on their own, it was, that line, they split the votes. I don't know what that really means, but the concept usually happens that when that major bridge constituency works as a third party, it divides the votes against those who are with the PNM. And in 1981, 1991, 2002, and 2007, it ensured that the PNM was successful. On the other hand, when it is that you have that bridge constituency forming a strategic alliance with other political parties, be it the ONR in 1986 with the ULF, be it the Congress of the People in 2010 with the UNC, it spells automatic defeat and annihilation of the PNM. And that is obviously what will usually happen. But where do we go from here? I give the assurance to Trinidad and Tobago, the intention of the NTA and that bridge constituency, as I said, it moved from 91 to 127 to 147,000 16 years ago. So obviously it is more. And the reason why it continues to expand is because younger persons, even in homes, are no longer being told by their parents, this is a PNM house or your UNC till you die and you have to stay as a UNC. In fact, younger persons, because of technology and so forth, they are actually educating their parents now to tell them that is not, you support blindly your football team, as I do with England, hope that they could win today, which really never works out too well for me. That is what you support. You don't support a political party blindly. That is what you call. So when it is, I heard the Prime Minister speak about cult, that is cult. That is cult behavior. Because that is a bad culture we have seen in our society, that there must be PNM or UNC till I die. And I'm not here to discredit or to attack those individuals who believe that. That is your right. We'd have seen it in the United States, where regardless of whether you're a Democrat or a Republican, you have the leaders there and you question their worth, but it doesn't matter. You're still going to get 50 million plus automatically voting for them regardless. We are here to represent those independent thinkers, those floating voters, those individuals who are actually looking at to analyze the situation to see if, do these individuals have what it takes to make this a better country? And that is what the NTA is here for. So, unfortunately, to some, where many people in the PNM, they look forward to parties such as the NTA to hope that we will go separately to split the votes for the PNM to win. We are not here to assist the PNM in winning an election to split the votes. We are also not here to be utilized by other parties to get your support and your vote for them to be the sole government. So we are not here to work for any political party, left or right. We are here to represent that bridge constituency, and that is what we intend to do. But how can we do this? Because many people are very concerned that what they would have seen in 1986 and 2010, where an amalgamation of anti-PNM voters get together to defeat the PNM, which would happen. It is automatic. But how do we prevent this from collapsing as what happened in 1986 and 2010? It cannot, as I said, be that just join together to beat the PNM. We have tried that, we have done that. It has not worked. What we are doing today and what I intend to express to the public, it goes with the other word in the name of the political party, the National Transformation Alliance. This is about transforming Trinidad and Tobago. And usually, as I said, political parties will usually deliver a Christmas shopping list just before the election of more police stations, more hospitals, better roads, bigger Coast Guard vessels. Been there, done that. There's no strategy, there's no cost-benefit analysis. And because of that, you will see the party that gets in government collapsing because they spend so much time trying to get into government. There's never been any preparation when you get into government. So what happens? Hypothetically speaking, a prime minister would appoint a minister of finance, call him, take over finance. But PM, I don't know how to balance a budget, you know. It's all right, stay there. Shamfa, take over sport, but prime minister, I never kick a line. That's okay. And that is what happens. And then all of a sudden, you try to put square pegs in wrong holes to try to run a ministry. And you fail miserably. We have a minister of communication, and I could ask the media, you may not even know him, you may have never seen him. He's the minister of communication, and he has never communicated with the media. That is what we have to encounter, because you win your seat as a member of parliament, and then now you have to try to find places for these persons to make them a minister when they do not have the training, the experience, the capability to run the ministry. And that is what happens. We have a person who is the chair of the National Security Council. He boasts about it. But his training and qualification is to massage rocks and stones, to whether it is igneous, sedimentary, or metamorphic. That is what we have to encounter. But he boasts that he's the chair of the National Security Council with no training, qualification, or experience in national security, law enforcement, or criminological theory. We have to change that. And how do we change that? How do we get these political parties to work together other than just joining together to beat the PNM? And thankfully, we have found that avenue. And I say it can work. And the reason I say it can work is that the same way we were able to transform the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, and I say we, because it was not a Gary Griffith thing. It was a team built with me, and we worked together to transform the image of the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service. Prior to Gary Griffith's tenure, the public trust in the police was 14%. When I left, it was 59%. A year later, it is now 8%. And because we did things to lift morale, to increase productivity, to make sure there was proper systems for good leadership, accountability, management, and measure their performance. And by doing that, we saw simple things. $300 million in overtime corruption in 3 years by police officers saying that they were working 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. They had, and so by taking out that $300 million, we were able to utilize the funds to get marine vessels for the police, bring back the marine branch that was never done before, the social media monitoring unit, the operational command center, the commissioner's command center, body cameras, pepper spray, tasers, hundreds of police vehicles, and that transformed the police service using the technology such as online reporting, the police app, and so forth. And by doing that, that is what you call transformation. We can do the same for every arm in the government. But how do we do that? And that is where I come to the transformation. As I started, by political parties getting together, working to just join to be the PNM is not the answer. What we have found is an independent body known as the Strategy Institute of Trinidad and Tobago. This body comprised 250 odd of the best minds of Trinidad and Tobago that have come together. They are an independent organization. They are not politically aligned. What they are here for is that they came together to help Trinidad and Tobago. And what they have done is form a roadmap towards good governance. And that is what we need. Not you getting in government, make you a minister, you didn't expect to be a minister in a ministry and you do not know what to do. So what is going to bind these parties together? And this Strategy Institute of Trinidad and Tobago, they have done their presentations to several political parties. They have welcomed it. And that is my point. What is going to bind this together when we get in government is that we will all have a common goal, a common vision, a common mission, a common objective by looking and realizing there's a template now that we intend to use through the Strategy Institute of Trinidad and Tobago by not just coming up with wild ideas of how it is you can come up with bright ideas in a manifesto to impress people, as I said, better roads, more hospitals, more police stations. No. What they have done is looked and analyzed all of the different things that can improve Trinidad and Tobago in almost every arm in the public service. So the same way we were able to transform the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, utilizing this independent body, we are going to transform Trinidad and Tobago through improving every arm in the public service. And how that is done, as I said, obviously utilizing the principles of leadership, accountability, management, and measuring performance. What the Strategy Institute of Trinidad and Tobago has done is that they have looked at major templates towards looking at see how best they can transform Trinidad and Tobago through people and society transformation and development, safety and security of the nation, economic transformation and effective management of our resources, good leadership and governance requirements, and remodeling and transforming state institutions. This, to the media and to the public, is the glue that is going to hold the political parties together. It is going to bind us together because now we have a template to ensure this is how we're going to have good governance. It is going to greatly reduce corruption, incompetence, bad management. And I'll give you a simple example. Let us look at health, for example. In health, in this country, over 65% of persons die because of 3 major ailments: cancer, heart, and vascular, diabetes, and so forth. And when you look at Trinidad and Tobago, when you look at the life expectancy of citizens in this country, it is about 74 years per person. So some of you all here might have gone into extra time, which is good. What can be done and should be done to increase that? Trinidad and Tobago, we rank about 96th in the world as it pertains to life expectancy, which is not too bad. 96, okay, you'll say we're halfway there. There are other countries down at the threshold in the 200 and the 200 plus that are 53, 54 years old. But why can't we go up to the other countries such as Hong Kong and European countries that their life expectancy is from 80 to 85? Why are we at 74? And that is my point. 65% of deaths take place from cancer, heart, and mostly diabetes, vascular. What have we done to improve this? What usually happens is when persons they are diagnosed with cancer, you find this out, and then by the time now, through our local institutions, with it being free, for you to get free treatment, it might take a while for you to start having the chemo, to start having the medication done, to have that surgery done. By that time, the cancer has spread. So it has diminished the possibility of your life expectancy because you do not have the $200,000 that certain persons will have to go to certain medical institutions in this country to immediately get that cancer treatment dealt with. Because if you don't deal with it immediately, the cancer spreads, and when the cancer spreads, your life expectancy stays down. Second example, it seems to be the norm, especially in Trinidad and Tobago, with clogged arteries going to the heart. Too much doubles, too much roti, I don't know. So that has become the norm. But for someone to immediately deal with it, you have to spend $150,000 immediately to a private institution to get the artery cleared. It is not a difficult procedure. But if you do not have that $150,000 to clear that artery that goes to your heart, it immediately now, the longer you take, the more damage to your heart takes place. So by the time you finally get that free treatment from our institutions in the public hospitals, your heart has been so damaged, your life expectancy goes down. What we intend to do to health is just a simple example. Make sure that there's immediate treatment available for every single citizen of this country on those three major ailments of heart, cancer, and vascular, more so diabetes. That now is going to immediately increase your chances to lift your life expectancy. So our vision is to ensure that Trinidad and Tobago will no longer be in the 90s with your life expectancy of 74 odd years, but to go up to the 80s with other countries. That is the type of vision we are looking at. Not giving promises and billing hospitals and police stations, but trying to utilize your resources in an effective manner to help citizens of this great country. That is how we will be working with the Strategy Institute of Trinidad and Tobago to transform Trinidad and Tobago. I wanted to know where this crowd came from. And my final point before I open questions to the media, which is unfortunate, we always have to turn to clarify comments made by political opponents. We have no intention to go down that road in this election campaign. It is much sooner than you think. We intend to show you options, solutions, and show what we intend to do. Spending all of your time on a platform attacking your political opponent has now become meaningless. I think almost every single person is fully aware that this government has failed miserably. And what you're going to get from now until the general election by Prime Minister Rowley is Gary, 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 Gary. I am living rent-free in his head. He seems fearful, he seems intimidated, and he seems obsessed with me. And there's a reason for this. The United National Congress will always have that 200 to 250,000 supporters. So he knows that. So putting his targets on individuals that lead the UNC, it's not going to make a change. What is going to make the change? Who leads that bridge constituency that is going to lead, serve, and guide those 100,000 floating voters that are not PNM or UNC till they die. And he understands that if you try to smear Gary, you eliminate Gary, then I could get back those voters who want to move away from the PNM because they have failed, but they do not want to vote for the UNC. So what you would have seen and heard, have you ever heard a prime minister spend so much time attacking a political leader who is not even in parliament? Even in 2007, Patrick Manning never spoke about Winston Dukaran. So it shows his fear factor. They have done their polls and they have understood what is happening. So the NTA, our direction, obviously, was to get into government. And I heard the Prime Minister on a front page of a newspaper today stated that he and I are not friends. It's the first time he and I have agreed on something in a very long time. And there's a reason for this, is that I agree, Mr. Rowley, Dr. Rowley, that we are not friends. Because as the same very ridiculous comment you made when women were being beaten by their husbands, and he said, you need to choose your husbands wisely, I choose my friends wisely. And when I choose my friends wisely, I can state that none of my friends, they were ever in the Oval car park and they dropped like a breadfruit when they were having too much of a good time and security had to pick them up. None of my friends were ever charged for criminal activity and taken to a cell recently. None of my friends were charged for child molestation. None of my friends were investigated by the police for hundreds of millions in excess taxpayers' dollars spent in contracts to ascertain if they actually supplied it. None of my friends were actually investigated by the Integrity Commission time and time again and had to defend themselves. So yes, Keith Rowley, I choose my friends wisely, and you are indeed different. So you and I are not friends. If I look at Keith Rowley, he's not a friend. If you take out the R from friend, that is what I consider him. And as it pertains then to what we had was a powerful working relationship, to the point that he, as a prime minister, actually started believing that he could control and direct the commissioner of police. Trinidad and Tobago, that is a dangerous precedent. What we have seen with Dr. Rowley is anytime anyone stands up to defend their independent office, he has them actually removed or he targets them, be it the Commissioner of Police, the Director of the SSA, the Auditor General, the Head of the Industrial Court, and you name it. And he has continued to do so. Every single person who has challenged him, who has stood up against him, you have to remove them, or, which is known as the audit government, every time you want to try to remove someone, this is the audit government. They had an audit with Stanley John and Stanley John. You had an audit with Pritchard and Barrington. You had an audit with 4 other comedians who you hired. You had an audit to deal with the Auditor General. You had and all of these audits just keep coming one after the other. There's an audit that is going to come now with procurement of the police service when I was there conveniently. But I am waiting for that audit to come out because you, Colin Imbert, and your Ministry of Finance do not have the moral authority to question the procurement practices of anyone, especially when you can't even balance a budget to account for billions of dollars unaccounted for, as stated by your attorney, the Auditor General. You do not have the moral authority to have any procurement questioning of the police service when you all injected 45 million TT into the police service without any tender process and try to direct the Commissioner of Police to appoint persons, hire them in the United Kingdom, and then after try to make them SRPs, and then try to direct the Commissioner of Police to use these individuals solely to target political opponents of the government. So when you make these comments, you have the audacity to question persons. You need to look in the mirror. And as it pertains to this, listen to his comments in Parliament recently. I ask you all to recall, let's go back to Emailgate. I want to show the character of Keith Rowley. Keith Rowley, through Emailgate, was convinced and believed that Gary Griffith was instrumental in planning to kill a media reporter. You said that. You never said that it was not true. You actually sent it out to the public. And Parliament is the one place where you can hide like a coward to make false statements on persons because you cannot be sued. That's what our Parliament has turned to. And he has used it well. And in that aspect, what he did, you send that message to allude that Gary Griffith was involved in trying to kill someone. But then, a couple years later, you strongly recommend me to be Commissioner of Police. Why would you put somebody that you thought was a virtual killer to put as Commissioner of Police? It means undoubtedly to Trinidad and Tobago, he knew Emailgate was a lie, because you will not appoint somebody to be Commissioner of Police knowing fully well in your mind that he was the person that was instrumental in planning to assassinate someone. Is that your character, to put a virtual killer to be in charge of the police service? So by him wanting to appoint me as Commissioner of Police, he was fully aware that what was put in Emailgate was a lie. So what he did was to mislead the country. That, Trinidad and Tobago, is the ethics and character or lack of that individual. And again, we go on to the polygraph testing. The polygraph testing recently, when he again lied to the country, his favorite singer has to be Lionel Richie. He obviously lives in Libert Village. To lie to the country to say that I pulled out wires, that is a lie. And the reason I can explain that is because when I was tested by the Police Service Commission to be polygraphed, I topped the merit list. I got 94% to Earl Christopher's 74%. I beat her like a frazzle in everything. And you could not have failed the polygraph test and top a merit list. So unlike him, I did my polygraph test and I did not fail. I also went to Miami by a top individual who will do polygraph testing for individuals in Miami Police, and I passed it as well, and I could give this to the media as well. So what I think is important is rather than go to Parliament to ask law enforcement officials to be polygraphed, the same way I operated as Commissioner of Police, you need to lead by example. When I trained at the best military academy in the world, they taught us that. Always be prepared to do exactly what you want those under your command to do, and yourself. So if you are telling persons to be polygraphed, he himself should be polygraphed, and I intend to be polygraphed with him as well. And the polygraph question should ask simple things. Did you harass a commissioner of police to hire foreign attorneys, pay them $45 million, make them SRPs, to focus on investigating political opponents? Any other country in the world, there will be a change in government for this. But we sit down and we turn away because we are a 7-day wonder country. Other questions. Did you harass the commissioner of police to get dealership licenses for someone in Tobago to sell thousands of more firearms, yet you had a concern about firearms? Did you meet a junior police officer in the diplomatic center for a briefing on firearms investigations? Did you try to influence the Police Service Commission head to withdraw a merit list for commissioner of police? Did other persons in your government, and this question should be done to all members of the National Security Council, not just Keith Rowley and myself. Did you harass a commissioner of police and the SSA director to put a junior police officer to be in charge of all the intercept equipment so that that individual will have full access to intercept the phone of each and every individual in this room and in this country? Those are the questions that should be asked. But as I said, this is an audit government. They spend more time in audits, and the audits involve ones where you spend big money, hire persons, select them, no tender process, and then they write a report littered with the word, it is alleged, it is rumored, and we've been told. That has gone on and on and on without any evidence, any data, but using the word allegations. And that is where I now come, just before I close, about his 2 points in Parliament a couple days ago. To begin with, the hypocrisy of Keith Rowley is mind-boggling, where he was insistent to go to Parliament to lay a simple audit report about firearms. Thought Parliament is the right place to do it. But here we are speaking about a second coup in Trinidad and Tobago within the last 30, 40 years. And you are saying you do not want to have that laid in Parliament for persons to see? So you want to send an audit report about firearms, but an audit report as it pertains to an overthrow of this government, a coup, a cult. You do not want to have that laid in Parliament. So as it pertains firstly to the SSA, Keith Rowley's comments as it pertains to the SSA, it has damaged the reputation of this country. Almost every international ally of our country has now looked at us as a terrorist state. He has made damning statements that have totally destroyed the reputation of Trinidad and Tobago. How could anyone want to come to this country to visit, to invest? No country, no citizen will want to do that now because you as the leader of a country have stated that there's a plot to destabilize the government. There's a planned coup, and there are persons who want to overthrow the government. And this is not about gang members. This is the major institution that equates with the CIA that is doing this. And you have said that. And again, as I said, who is the cause of all of this? Keith Rowley, and I'll tell you why. There was a commission of inquiry into the attempted 1990 coup. The main recommendation made by that commission of inquiry into the 1990 coup as to what went wrong was because of lack of understanding, lack of coordination, lack of mutual communication integrated between all arms of the protective services. They recommended the establishment of a national operations center. The media could give you the recommendations of the coup, of that commission of inquiry if you require. Their number one recommendation, you need to form a national operations center because during the 1990 coup, one hand didn't know what the other was doing. So Special Branch, the Defense Force, the SIA, everybody had little snippets of information. And had they accumulated it at the same time, they would have known what was taking place on that fateful event. They did not. That is why you formed the National Operations Center. The National Operations Center was designed to make sure that every arm of intelligence in Trinidad and Tobago will be there in that one facility. We built it. Do you know what Keith Rowley did? He threw out every single arm of national security intelligence out of the NOC and left it to the SSA. So you caused the problem. You are the responsible for the same SSA doing what it is doing because you removed the Defense Force, the Army, the Coast Guard, the Customs, the Immigration, the Police from the National Operations Center. So they did not know what SSA was doing. So SSA had full control of everything in the National Operations Center. So you, because of your ignorance in not adhering to the mandate of the Commission of Inquiry into the attempted coup is what could have probably caused yet another coup. Because of your bitterness that the UNC, that the People's Partnership Government established a National Operations Center, you put it directly under the SSA. And let me tell you again, If it is that you wanted to shut down the Special Operation Response Team based on allegations, because up to now, not one person in SOT has been charged for a criminal offense, why don't you shut down the SSA now? Because you have stated that the SSA is now instrumental in an attempted coup, but it still exists. Furthermore, who is to say that there are not sleeper cells in the SSA? Because I am speaking on behalf of Keith Rowley now. So you shut down SOT because of an allegation of a situation where no one was charged. But here in the SSA, you have confirmed that there is a plan to overthrow the government and an attempted coup. And you're still keeping the SSA. It again shows the double standard. So you remove SOT that was instrumental in pegging back every criminal element in this country. It was replaced by something known as the National Operation Task Force. Their biggest success in the last 2 years was arresting an old man for selling school books on the pavement. That is what we have reached to in this country, and that is fact. So you have now targeted the SSA, you have demonized them, but it still exists. And we do not know if sleeper cells are still there. And what makes it worse, to give information, I could do this based on my training as a military person, as a security minister, as a security advisor, and as a commissioner of police. Komuto Barracks was under the Special Anti-Crime Unit. When the PNM government took over, they handed over Komuto Barracks to guess who? The SSA. So it was the PNM government that handed over Komuto to the SSA. By doing that, hundreds of thousands of rounds became the SSA became the custodian for this ammunition. SSA became the custodian for hundreds of weapons that belong to the Defense Force and the police. So again, you try to speak about the SSA. Have you done a proper audit? How could you, in God's name, do an audit and the person who was in charge of the SSA you have not spoken to? Because I spoke to him. And he said that after they came to their conclusions, he heard about this on the news. And it's the same nonsense that Keith Rowley's audit team did as it pertained to firearms. You did an audit and didn't speak to the person who is in charge of the organization. Are we that clueless? So you do another audit now with the SSA, and the person who was in charge of the SSA, you didn't speak to him to ask, what is the situation with these 70,000 rounds missing? What is this update about persons who are involved in a cult? So I said, just like the FUL audit, you did not do what is required, and you just automatically publish something. And again, I want to bring a very important point to Trinidad and Tobago. We are now demonizing people because they go to church. That's what we have reached to in this country. It is now being seen as a crime. We are now trying to label church-going people as a Jim Jones cult. 23 persons were fired in the SSA. 2 persons were highly involved in the church. 2. And all of these persons who were fired were polygraphed and passed the exams. This shows, Trinidad and Tobago, that evil is indeed invading our land, that some will see God-fearing people and try to target them. It has been said, in fact, I think prophesied, that those who praise their God, those who serve their God, will indeed be targeted and victimized by evil beings. I ask all religious organizations, all God-fearing persons, all persons who believe in their God, in whichever form or fashion, understand what is being done to this country and what is being said by the evil elements that seek to demonize those who serve their God. Now, I'm definitely not saying that every single person who goes to church is a saint, but you are making a damning accusation, and not one person has been charged. Not one person charged. But in the eyes of the world, you have stated that there's a major coup that was planned to overthrow the government and a cult. How could you use the word coup, cult, remove a government, and yet not one person arrested, not one name called, and not one person charged? This is Emailgate reloaded yet again, where it is he has now tried to smear a person's name, destroy their character, but say it in Parliament. And this is similar to my final point as it pertains to his comments with the FUL. I would like to clarify for the 73rd time to the media. When people are asking why it is I try to block it, I did not try to block it. I look forward to when Keith Rowley and Hines and others speak, because I make a lot of money in court for defamation. Because the one thing with defamation, it is not unless it is true. But when you lie about someone and smear their character with lies, your only time that you could be protected is when you go to Parliament like a coward. So you did an audit for the third time, because remember the Stanley Jokey John report, after 3 years, it was a massive, well-oiled criminal enterprise, but not one person held, not one weapon seized, not one name called, not one person charged. But they keep saying it was a massive, well-oiled criminal enterprise. So then, as it pertains to myself, you do an audit, and these jokers who you handpick without a tender process and pay them hundreds of thousands in taxpayers' dollars, do an audit of the police service, and you never spoke to me. There's something Trinidad and Tobago called natural justice. You must speak to the individual to clarify the lies. They did not do that. So the court realized, listen, don't go that way. You did not speak to the man under natural justice. How you can make a statement public without even speaking to him? And then he wanted to go to Parliament. If he said he was going on a public platform or to a post-cabinet conference, where it is that he just speaks about Gary Griffith and Kamala, never speaks about what happens in cabinet, I had no problem. But he wanted to go to Parliament, as the coward that he was, to try to smear my name and for me not to be able to sue him. That was the problem. And the court was correct in what they did. He then stated in Parliament that, in the report stated that criminals got guns. Trinidad and Tobago won. For you to get a firearm, you must get a certificate of character. So you cannot have a criminal record. So that was a lie. And if it was not a lie, name the criminal, seize the weapon. Up to now, he can't do it. 2, he then stated that persons involved in heavy domestic violence matters will get in firearms. That too is a lie, because your wife must sign for it to give approval for your husband to get a firearm. If it is, he beat the system, call the name of the individual and seize the firearm. No firearm was ever seized in that manner, and no name was ever called. 3, he then stated that they have the reports. The report stated that persons admitted paying bribes and police officers accepted the bribes. If you have that as a report, call their names, charge them, and seize the firearms. Not one name has been called, not one firearm seized, and not one person charged based on that lie he said in Parliament. And 4, he then stated that persons with semi-automatic firearms changed it to automatic firearms. That is a criminal offense. Had that been done, the weapon would be seized, the person's name called, and he would be charged. So for those 4 lies he made, up to now he can't call one name, not one weapon has been seized by Earl Christopher, and not one person charged. And then he goes on to speaking about what Earl Christopher said, over 100 legal firearms were involved in criminal activities. Again, when you play with words, over 100 legal firearms have been involved in criminal investigations. Know how deceitful these people are. So what they were included in that 100 would have been police officers using their firearm in defense, a law-abiding citizen using their firearm in self-defense, a security guard losing his firearm, a police officer having a negligent discharge. They package all of that to give the impression that 100 licensed firearm owners use their weapon to kill someone or to rape someone. That is a lie. You all are aware, media, how many persons with legal firearms in the last 5 years have been involved in a criminal offense? Not more than 5. But we have over 3,000 persons who have been killed in the last 9 years under Keith Rowley's government, killed by firearms. 99.9% have been by illegal firearms, which he has not done one thing, not lifted one finger to deal with. And again, when they tried to speak about my liberal giving of firearms, to say it for the 73rd time, there were 25,000 applications for firearms, 25,000. I gave out roughly 1,000 a year to law-abiding citizens and 1,000 to protective services members, whether police, army, coast guard, customs, prison officers, past and present, because of their lives being at risk. It meant that giving out 2,000 odd a year, it would have taken me 12 to 15 years to deal with the backlog that took place because of the incompetence and the laziness of commissioners before me, because most of them, before and after me, they love to wear gabardine, they love to hold a cane, they cannot go on the ground, they probably never held a weapon in years, so they didn't understand it. There was a law. I adhered to the law. So I gave out 0.3% of firearms to the country. And in that 3 years, not one was lost, not one was stolen, not one was used for a crime. In fact, many lives were saved because of it. And it goes back to my point. The evil that men do it live after them. The good is often turned in their bones. And if it is that you, as a politician, have a problem with law-abiding citizens getting firearms, you have now become the ultimate hypocrite. Look at the front page of one of the newspapers today. You continue to speak to me to organize a dealership for somebody in Tobago to sell thousands of more firearms. You have a security minister that harassed me to get firearm licenses for 12 plus persons closely aligned to him. You're speaking to me to get blasting license for someone. You're contacting me to get to what is the status of a firearm for a good friend of yours. So it is okay for these government ministers to get firearms for their friends in high places. But when I am providing firearms to the small businessman, to the homeowner who wants to protect his family, to the farmer, to the person involved in sport, that was a problem. And again, the lies of stating that 67,000 firearms came into the country. If I issued 2,000 firearms a year, it would have taken over 35 years to sell those firearms. What firearm dealer would be so stupid to bring in a firearm knowing it will take 35 years to sell? Because after 5 years, the weapon is outdated. I tell you, the man's favorite singer is Lionel Richie. He then spoke about me stating that someone died because he fell off a chair. That is a lie. I challenge anyone, show me any video footage of me stating that. I never said anyone died. But you see, Keith Rowley knows one thing. You say the same lie over and over and hope people will believe you. But I will continue to double down and expose his lies. And it is just like Sort. When he spoke about the Special Operation Response Team being blacklisted for human rights violation, not one officer in SWAT has been charged for human rights violation. Not one officer in SWAT has been charged for a criminal offense. But, in the defense force, three persons who was the guard for the chief of defense staff, they were involved in the kidnapping and killing of someone from the special naval unit that is funded by the United States. And I think they used the same weapon that the United States gave them. So the US didn't blacklist SNU. Even though people were charged and they used the weapons that the US gave them. They weren't blacklisted. They didn't see that as human rights violation. But they're saying that SWAT had human rights violation, even though up to now not one person has been charged. As I will continue to say, there are evil elements here, and people were very upset that SWAT was actually cleaning up the country. And a reminder yet again, with the 3 audits by Keith Rowley, not one firearm, not dealer has been arrested. Not one name called and not one weapon seized. Because with no evidence, no report, no witnesses, slander cannot be used as an avenue to charge anyone. They live on the words alleged. To Trinidad and Tobago, I intend to be able to make Trinidad and Tobago safe again. We intend to remove the corruption, the mismanagement, the victimization, the dictatorship that we have seen. And through us planting ourselves here in St. Joseph, we have now commenced our mission. I thank you. I ask now any questions from the media?
Should anybody have a question, I have the microphone.
Oh no, it's Darren.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning.
Mr. Griffith. Do you think the Prime Minister is trying to rope you in to this alleged coup involving the SSA, saying that you trained together with Major Best and you knew Pastor Ian Brown?
Very good question, and the answer is yes. That is what this was all about. The government spends more time trying to see how they can demonize Gary Griffith. They tried it first with the FULs, with 3 different audits. It fell flat. The country has realized it was a lie. And even if there was some degree of criminal activity, we have heard about firearm abuse and blackmailing and extortion decades now. I put an end to it by doing exactly what Keith Rowley was upset about, because they had police officers, we had reports for years refusing to release the applications in stations. And what I said is, after 3 months, you need to bring it forward to the FUL department through the compliance unit. That is where the corruption was taking place. And then when he said, well, Gary Griffith was overriding police officers, I was. Because if it is that you're incompetent and you're trying to deliberately stop someone, police officers will put in, I have rejected it because there's no threat to your life. Educate yourself, police officer. That is not a reason to reject a firearm. That person would have taken me to court through the appeals board and I would have lost. So that is why we started overriding, because police officers were deliberately trying to blackmail persons. So they tried it. Phase 1 was using the FULs. Phase 2 is the SSA. They saw a report by the person, by one of the officers charged, where he said, on approval by the Commissioner of Police, I have given you approval to hand over the weapons. They got excited. They played the game of, aha, we catch him. You remember one of them said it in Parliament, and a Commissioner of Police gave approval. You lied again, because you are so clueless, you did not realize that line is a general line used similar to when you see a sign on no entry or no parking on order of the Commissioner of Police. It's not Earl or McDonald or Gary pick up a sign and put it there. That is a generalized statement. So when the individual gave approval, I as a commissioner will have time to we have thousands of firearms in the police service. We will look to say, take these 2 firearms and give it to that person. I was never aware of it. So they realized they fell flat. So they were forced now to find a red herring to cover their embarrassment because they realized we didn't catch him again. So that is where this coup and the plot and the cult and all of this took place. That's why I was very clear to show to the country. If there was a coup, you have not yet called a name, which means that the people are still outside. Why will anyone want to come into Trinidad and Tobago if you have now admitted that there are terrorists here, there's a coup planned, there's a plot to destabilize the country, and the persons have not yet been charged. So they are walking around freely, probably still in the SSA because there could be sleeper cells there. So that was the plan. It was a deliberate, they thought they had me, they did not do their homework, they were embarrassed to understand and forgot that the SSA has nothing to do with the police service. Guess who the SSA reports to? Ethelbert. So if anybody is to be fired, it is Ethelbert for allowing this to happen because the SSA reports directly. The head of the SSA has nothing to do in administration, discipline, operations with the Commissioner of Police.
Follow-up question. You're the first person to head the Army Intelligence Unit, SIA. Do you think, from that role, do you think the SSA had proper oversight before the National Security Council? No,
it did not, and that is why in that recommendation by the Commission of Inquiry into the attempted coup, they realized that. They realized that if one body could become corrupt or could be used as an avenue to overthrow a government, we need to make sure there are checks and balances. So Keith Rowley deliberately dismissed the recommendation of the attempted coup's Commission of Inquiry to prevent a repeat of this. Because when I formed the National Operations Center, I adhered to the Commission of Inquiry's recommendation. We formed the NOC. If persons do not understand what the NOC is, if you all remember that movie, London Has Fallen, when the commissioner said, "Good morning, London," that is an NOC. You have all the cameras that is being fed and is being seen by the representatives of the prisons, the fire, the customs, the immigration, the Ministry of Work, the police, the army, the Coast Guard. That is what was supposed to be done. They threw out everyone. They kicked them out like dogs and took the NOC and said, SSA, you take full control. And they are the cause of this. So if the SSA has full control, sometimes absolute power corrupts. And I'm not saying that it did happen. But my point being is, had it stayed how it was supposed to have been, as recommended by the Commission of Inquiry into the attempted coup, the Army Intelligence, the Defense Force Intelligence, of which I was in charge of, we would have had representation there. The special branch would have been in there. They would have seen what was going on. It would not have reached to this point that our country is now facing international embarrassment because it is perceived that they are cult persons, they are coup persons, they are persons who intend to destabilize the country, walking around willy-nilly because you have not charged anyone. And had you stayed with what was done, this would not have happened.
2 final questions. How important is the SSA in terms of a tool in the fight against crime?
It is critical, very critical, because what I did was what is known as predictive policing, intelligence-driven policing. We speak a lot about detection rate. If you look at Chicago and other countries where there are gang-related murders, detection rate is very hard. If you have a drive-by shooting, no one will say anything. So intelligence-driven policing is what will allow the crime not to take place. That is why under my watch, it was the highest reduction in violent crime in 17 years. Through the Special Operation Response Team, they had their own elite intelligence unit, and from that they would be getting information. There's a vehicle so with 4 automatic weapons about to take out this prison officer at his home. Bam, interception, bam, we deal with them. And one shot, one kill too. And that is how we dealt with the criminal elements. We do it to them before they do it to us within the law. So the SSA is a critical avenue to provide intelligence for intelligence-driven policing. There must be proper coordination. But now you have put somebody in charge of the SSA, and nothing against the individual, because I trained with him, I worked with him, I replaced him when he was aide to the president. He's probably one of the most brilliant men that I have worked with. But the man has never been involved in any aspect of intelligence in his training, in the whole history of him in the Defense Force. He's the Rishmi Ramnarayan of the Trinidad and Tobago Defense Force. So you're attacking Rishmi, but what is his training, qualification, knowledge, and experience in intelligence gathering? None. None. He was the right hand to chief of defense staff. He was an aide-de-camp to the president. He has been a brilliant ambassador, and he's one of the role models of this country. So I'm not knocking him. It's horses for courses, but that is how Keith Rowley operates. Put somebody out. He's a good man, let him put him there. And he's not political. I have no knowledge of him being a political stool bird. But the fact of the matter is you don't want to put horses for courses, and that avenue of the SSA is critical. It is similar, Trinidad and Tobago, to the CIA. And guess what? The CIA, they have weapons. Because when the SSA has to go in volatile situations, 2 o'clock in the morning in a hotspot area, they must have weapons. SSA always had weapons. They had it before Roger Best. They had it from the persons who were in charge of the SSA, SIA, all the way back. And it has always been like that.
Do you think the analogy of the Prime Minister being able to not face any criminal investigation in the land date matter because they did not interview him is similar to your situation in relation to the firearms reports?
Of course, it is hypocrisy at its highest level. Do so and like so. And that is the problem, because what happened in that landed matter, from what I gather, they did not give him natural justice. They did not give him the opportunity to defend himself. They did not give him an opportunity to state his side of the story. You did the same thing with me, with your 3 audits, but that is okay. The same thing you did with Roger Best, but that is okay. The man is the ultimate hypocrite. So you were concerned about what they did with you with natural justice, with land date. But when you had 3 audits and you had conclusions on the audit, you never brought it to me for me to say, that is a lie, look the evidence. This is not true, look the evidence. This is impossible, look the evidence. You deliberately didn't do that. Or the people who you hired, which is why the court, it's not Gary Griffith blocked it, the court realized you all can't be serious, that is what you all will do. And they did the same thing, so it's not a mistake, right? It is not a mistake. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. Fool me 3 times, I hit a bubbly. I realize you have a pattern. And that is what he has done. Because you did the same thing now with Roger Best. You did an audit with all of these concerns. Coup, plot, destabilize the country, cult. Roger Best, what do you have to say about this? They never did. How could anyone in their right mind accept and expect us to keep that man as a prime minister? Any other questions? Yes.
So you started with and that is your aim for the next general election. Is that the only constituency you'll be working on, or do you have other people going further?
No, not at all. As a political party, obviously the intention will be for all 41 seats. And as it goes along, we will decide. As I've mentioned, in the next couple of weeks, we will also be setting up an office in San Fernando West. So some of the seats we have priorities so far that we've been doing. We have candidates, and interviews are going on very strongly. We have a number of persons who have asked to be candidates of this great party. We're looking at the 3 Diego Martin so far, definitely. Samoa, Barataria, St. Joseph, Tunapuna, Lupino Bonea, La Joqueta, Talparo, Sangre Grande, San Fernando West. Did I say more? Okay, that's it. And thank you very much for being here. And we have a fantastic meal, doubles for all outside. Thank you very much.
Yeah, baby! You know it's all about NTA!